Imagine yourself walking through a lush forest. It's a beautiful day, only a few clouds dot the sky. You're foraging for berries when all of a sudden you hear quiet laughter just behind the next tree. You quickly but cautiously look around the tree trunk and see a couple of tiny humans with wings. Do you get closer or slowly walk away? What are fairies? Are there many kinds? What do you do if you come across one? All very important questions that we'll be discussing today. So grab a snack, a refreshing drink, and your fairy loving friends as we dive in.
Well, we have our fairy loving friend Kathew here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Welcome back, Kathew.
Thank you.
It's been a while.
It has. It's December.
And you were here with us in June.
Was it June?
Yeah, it was
May
June.
or June.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Yeah, episode 24, and now it's episode 50.
Mm-hmm.
Woo!
Woo!
Boop, 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 boop.
Milestones.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you guys think when I say fairy? What do you guys think of it at first?
Well, because of today's, the media and everything, you think of things like Tinkerbell and all of her little fairy friends. They made a whole movie series on them.
Mhm.
And then I actually think of Barbie because they made some fairy Barbie movies as well.
Those are cute.
So you think of a tiny little beautiful woman with beautiful little wings. And
I think of Tinkerbell.
Yeah, that's what I think like most people nowadays would think of.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like historically, they're not all just like beautiful ladies, like tiny human-looking, beings with wings. There's actually a lot of different kinds, and like so they call actually like the whole realm of them like fae folk. So there's a lot of different subgenres.
It's called fae folk?
Fae folk. So Fae.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a fairy, spelled Fairy, fairy spelled Faerie, or fae, Fae, is their general words for fae folk, which includes many different types of fairies. So we'll get into a lot of different kinds in a little bit. So a fairy is a type of mythical being or legendary creature that is found in the folklore of multiple European cultures, some of which include Celtic, Germanic, Slavic, English, and French folklore. So that's just a few that really have them cemented in their in their heritage.
Okay. I definitely knew about like the Celtic being like the Celtic folklore, and
Yeah.
I think maybe like Germanic makes sense to me, and then probably English, but Slavic and French is kind of
It's weird, right?
especially the Slavic to me. I didn't know that they had anything
I think
to do
a
with
lot
fairies.
of fantasy books too, are expanding people's understanding of kind of cultural referring to the fairy folk and everything too, because that's where I kind of learned that when I was growing up.
Like
I
from
read a
the
lot of
Brothers
fantasy.
Grimm.
Oh, like the dark
No.
stuff, or like
Yeah, well, some of the dark stuff, but there's a lot of young fantasy novels too that are introducing more fae folk into
Like what?
the stories. I remember I read do you remember the book series, City of Bone, City of Ash?
Yeah.
They had a whole they had different, monsters per se. They had the
Mhm.
vampires, they had the Nephilim, but then they also had the fae folk.
Okay. I've never read that series, so were they like actually fairies in the book then, or were they like
Fae folk were these magical beings that usually had animalistic features. So it wasn't just, fairy wings. It's maybe they had antlers, or maybe they had scales on their skin, or, things like that.
Okay, cool.
Now my question with the fairies, are they little?
Some are. So we'll kind of get into some of that. Some are.
Some are
of the fae folk
human-sized, some are,
Mm-hmm. It depends on which ones you're talking about, or which genre, like which type you're talking about.
Okay.
So fairies in general don't have a single origin. Instead, the lore is a combination of many different beliefs from many different religions and like points in time. So one folk theory is that fairies are demoted angels and or demons. And then in the pagan religion, fairies could be ancient precursors to humans, or spirits of the dead, and or spirits of nature, which I think is kind of like a pretty common theme even today. Like even with like Tinkerbell and like her fairies like from Disney, like her friends, it's like water and like animal living stuff. So that's
the
kind of
nature one I've heard of. Yep.
Yeah, so that's more common today. However, the most widely believed origin story is that fairies began as versions of pagan nature gods and goddesses.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the big one. So, however, like no matter the religion or like where it came from, fairies are always thought to be magical creatures with a human appearance for the most part, magical powers, and a passion for trickery.
Oh, passion for trickery.
Yeah. So that's something that like when I growing up, I just thought of like fairies as like cute and magical and nice. And then as like I got older and more like learning more about like, cryptids and stuff, I heard more about like fairies and like how it actually is kind of a dark kind of thing. Like some of it can actually get kind of dark. So it's interesting.
It's not Disney-fied.
No, it's not Disney.
No, I've heard some stories of fae folk that actually the fairies liked to eat the bones of children.
Oh. I've seen
Stark.
what TV show? The TV show Outlander.
Mhm.
So that
Okay.
like follows like the Scottish like people, and
Mhm.
it has to do with like time travel. But anyway, there was this lady that had a baby that was like stillborn or something or sick, and they thought that it was infected or like the fairies swapped with it. So it was a
Oh,
fairy
yep.
baby. So then
Yep.
the mom took it into the forest to leave because then they believed that the fairy baby, like the fairies would then bring back the human baby and leave it at the mom's doorstep. So she was just, but then the baby died in the forest because
Oh.
it was cold and you can't leave a baby out there in the forest that long without food and
Yeah.
water.
Yeah, we'll kind of get into that kind of genre too. Yeah. So they're called changelings, and we'll talk about those a little bit later.
Oh, it was a
I've heard of those.
changeling. Okay.
Changelings, yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
So,
I read a lot of fantasy growing up. I know
Kathew's
so
just
much
grinning
about this
ear
subject.
to ear right now.
I'm excited.
So, depending on the region, fairies are said to live in woodland communities, underground kingdoms, or to inhabit lakes, hills, or like stone grass circles. So, like, it kind of depends, like, which area you're looking at. They're often along with centaurs, elves, ogres, gnomes, which we had another episode on.
Is that episode 42?
I believe so, yes. Yes. That's a good episode.
That's a great episode.
And then, so the fairies can come in many different races and tribes and are also said to vary in size and shape. So, although most are like small, some can change size and become man-sized or larger if they want to.
If they want to.
So,
Okay.
if they want to. Yeah. All right. So, the first subgenre we're going to be talking about are the brownies.
I love brownies.
Not the food.
not these.
Especially those
unfortunately.
those like crappy cosmic brownies that you get out of like a sad vending
They're
machine.
so rich.
They're so
are good.
rich.
I like those.
You need them with coffee.
Yeah, you do need them with coffee.
I just like them on their own.
You need the coffee to cut through the sweet.
Okay, so brownies are your typical household spirit. They originated with Scottish folklore, and although they popped up in English and German folklore at times as well. So these, as I kind of like read through this, you'll kind of see like similarities if you listen to like our gnomes episode.
Mm-hmm.
They sound a lot like the Nisse, and like there's a lot of connections with them. So kind of like, yeah, so we'll get into that a little bit. So originally, brownies were known as helpers for farmers, and they tended to do outdoor tasks during the night, such as like shoveling hay, feeding sheep, etc. So every house had one, and in the kitchen next to the fire was this little seat that was left unoccupied for them. So it's like a little reserved seat, which is cute.
That's cute.
Yeah, I like that. So brownies, they are short, typically about like 3 feet tall, and they have pointed ears, brown complexions, and brown working clothes. They do not like to be seen and will only work at night. So traditionally, in exchange for small gifts of food.
Okay.
So kind of a lot like the Nisse. So brownies seldom speak with humans, but they do frequently converse with each other. So like you can kind of hear them with each other, but like they won't come out and like talk to humans usually.
Okay.
So brownies can turn invisible, and this helps them like hide during the night and like sneaking and hiding around the house. They're usually male, although every once in a while like there might be a female brownie that appears.
Because how else are there more brownies?
Exactly, yes. So they are usually described as ugly, perhaps even frightening. This is not my word. This is from a different website. So
what about that brownie fellow? I heard that he was nice looking. No, he's ugly.
Oh, I mean they could look nice. It's just like in general people say that they are.
They're ugly. Aww.
Oh, yeah. So some people even say that they're frightening or unsettling, which is really sad. They are often characterized as a short, rotund, wrinkled, and with a lot of curly hair.
Rotund.
Rotund, apparently.
Good
Yes.
word.
Rotund. It's a fun word. So the homeowners were supposed to regularly set out extra food as gifts for the brownies. And especially like they loved porridge and honey. So kind of again like the Nisse on Christmas Eve. Or Tante. Yep. So however, the food that you leave out must be called gifts and not payment. Because if you call it payment, the brownies will leave the house. Like they'll abandon the house.
Well, how would they know?
I suppose like if they hear the people talking about it, like be like, oh, here's a gift for you, or instead of like payment.
Okay.
I guess I don't know, like unless they write out just like come and say, here's your payment. I don't know. But they only like it being called as gifts.
It's a gift. Okay.
Yes. And they'll also leave too, like so they'll leave if you call it a payment, or obviously if you misuse them. So like if you like abuse like their works, like if you don't help and like they're doing all the work and stuff, like then they'll leave, which makes sense. Yeah. So if the family gives the brownie a gift of clothing, it is said that he will leave forever and refuse to work for the family.
Oh, just a gift of clothing? What?
Of clothing too,
like
yeah.
Dobby.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not only known for being, so like it could be because they're offended, or otherwise some people interpret it as like kind of like Dobby, like here's a very gracious gift of clothing for you. Now I'm free. You know, like I'm gonna go somewhere else. It's like Dobby. So there's a lot of connections that
there's
people...
that's where the inspiration for Dobby comes from.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Brownie?
Yep. Master gave Dobby a sock.
That was so cute.
Dobby is free.
Cute. Aw, I like Dobby. He's cute.
He's dead.
He's dead.
He was cute.
But he's dead.
Okay, moving on. Alright. So the next one we're going to talk about, this is like getting to the little creepier side of Fae folk, are the Banshees.
That's a fairy?
It's part of the Fae, not fairy technically, but Fae folk.
Okay.
Yes. So Banshees, they only exist in Ireland and Scotland, typically on the moors, and is said to have the cry of death.
Scary.
Yes. So the Banshee is a female spirit or type of fairy that predicts death. Her cry is typically an omen. It says that she can appear in a lot of different forms according to fairy lore, and she is known to appear either as a beautiful young woman, a stately matron, or an old ugly hag, which is...
Now, if you had to pick between any of those three, which one would you pick?
Young woman, usually.
The hag.
Yes, Kathew. I like it.
I want to be the stately matron.
You want to be stately? Okay, so we got one of each.
Yep, so
That's
each
good.
of us, yes, Katrina, the beautiful young woman, I myself, Kendra, would be the stately matron, and Kathew, by her own choice, wants to be the ugly old hag.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be left alone then.
All right. Yep.
So sad.
Listeners, you can see the beautiful young woman, a stately matron, and an ugly old hag on tour at the Bellagio in Vegas on a residency twice a month.
I mean, it's not us, but they're there. So, I mean, the Banshee isn't often seen with your eyes, but rather she is heard. So her mourning cries are known to be extremely haunting, which, I mean, any like form of crying or like mourning sounds, especially in the dead of night, would be haunting in my opinion.
Yeah.
So a Banshee is often seen running a comb through her long silver hair while she cries. So
that's really funny.
Why just brushing her hair and crying?
Yeah, you're just brushing your hair and crying and sobbing.
Yeah,
it's
kind of
funny.
sad.
It's kind of sad, but I think it's funny.
Okay. So in some parts of Ireland, combs are now thought to be bad luck because of the Banshees. So people are like associate combs with Banshees combing their hair with them. So then they associate it with bad luck.
Little do they know that the brush industry leaked that rumor.
They just add some like little snips of like, hey, it's a Banshee. Don't use combs. Just use our brushes. Even though we sell combs too. So the Banshee usually don't harm people that they encounter, but her cry does predict death. So when you hear her cry, she's simply predicting the death, not necessarily like you, but somebody in the area. So if you're like with a bunch of people, it's one of them, one of you. So it's not necessarily you, but
she's not very specific, is she?
No. Well, I mean, if you're alone and you hear it, that's terrifying.
But somebody else, like in your area, could have heard it too.
That's true. That's true.
Get more specific.
Just cries out your name. Oh, that's creepy.
Oh, that's worse.
Well, yeah. All right. So the next one we're gonna get into are the Changelings. Okay, so Changelings again are kind of the more scary side of fairy lore, and they aren't exactly type of fae, but they are still associated with them.
Okay.
So according to legend, a changeling is a fairy child that has been swapped for a human child. The changeling will grow up with human parents, but won't appear like a normal human child, so something will be slightly off.
Like what?
I think it's like they're still technically a fairy, right? So it could be like their eyes or like their ears are slightly pointed or something like that. So they're not entirely human.
Okay.
Yeah, looking, anyways. So fairies will swap the babies for a couple of different reasons. Each culture has its own legend. Sometimes they say a fairy will swap a sick fae child with a healthy human child, and then this fae child will either die in infancy or will grow up sickly. So the human parents will notice as their child grows up. It can be beautiful and artistic with fairy features, even though they may be unhealthy. So like they can still be beautiful, like be very talented, but something's still not right. Other fairies swap their babies because they want a beautiful human child and feel like their own baby is ugly, which is really sad. It is also said that they may switch the children to strengthen their bloodline if there is sickness.
Oh, okay.
So that's weird too.
That's weird too.
Yeah.
There's a legend. Sometimes there's an old saying that if their child is sickly or something, sometimes people say, "Oh, they're touched by the fae."
Oh.
Oh,
that.
that's the saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bad saying.
Yeah. So if you do encounter a changeling, you'll notice their fairy features. They won't look like their parents and will probably have some magical skills. They may also have some trouble fitting in socially because fairies relate to each other in a different way than humans. So like their social skills won't be necessarily like humans are, like at the same. And yeah. And then so another thing, a little tidbit, it says it's unclear if changelings ever truly existed or if it was just a way to explain infant mortality rates in medieval times, which kind of brings it back really sad because to me that's like if they already believed in fairies, it does make sense that like that's a way of them to like cope with that.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. All right. So the next one we have is the divas. So divas are small fairies that look almost like fireflies. And then it's said that if you live in a woodsy area, that you might have seen these divas without even knowing it. So they look like fireflies. The diva originated in Persia and Greece, and they appear as bright orbs of light in nature, although they're particularly found in the woods. So divas love being around well cared for plants, and they are known to guide medical researchers or witches seeking to use plants for medicinal qualities. However, a diva won't stay near a plant that is in decay. So if you have like a green thumb, they'll come and hang around your garden. But if you have a lot of dead plants, they'll just leave.
They won't even
That's why I've never seen one.
Oh no! Yeah, so all throughout college, Kathew was trying to have many cacti, many plants,
succulents.
Yeah, there was. It didn't
they
go
all
too well.
perished.
They're dead.
It's quite sad.
I didn't know you could kill a cactus.
I've killed
Until I met
several.
Kathew. She's killed many.
It's been many, yes. It's like almost every year she had a new one, and then you come back the next year and it was gone.
She is like one cacti death away from being on a list.
Oh man, do you have any plans right now, Kathew?
I do.
You have any plans?
She's got
You
a
do?
lot. Yeah,
I do.
Nice.
They're doing all right. I wouldn't say they're great.
They're still kicking,
but they're still kicking.
Mm-hmm.
So
oh, no.
I do need to water them actually.
All right, so we know what she's gonna do after this episode. She's gonna go water them.
Oh, good thing we talked about them.
Yep.
Didn't you have like a plant named Jerry or something?
I don't know, I've named so many of them.
There's so many
they've
plants.
died.
Yep. There's so many names.
What was the one that was hanging in our living room in college?
Oh yeah, that is Gerald.
Was he still alive?
That is Gerald. Yeah.
That's not very convincing.
I haven't watered him in a while.
Kathew.
He was doing so good. Though. He is still alive.
He was doing so good.
He was thriving for the longest of times.
He is still alive.
Water him, please. Feed him. Yes, Poor child.
He needs water.
Okay, so moving on to our next one. This is the next fae folk is kind of similar to the divas. These are ones that I've heard of actually in a modern movie. They're called the Willow Wisp.
Willow Wisp?
Willow Wisp. So the Willow Wisp is a type of fae that is seen on any body of water at night. They will look like a small firefly or flickering orb of light. So the Willow Wisp is seen across the world and is known by many different names in different cultures. They will typically appear in groups. They also tend to like calm waters rather than rough waves, so they're more commonly found in like lakes or ponds.
Okay.
However, willow wisps have been found on grassy hills or even in woods, which kind of what I've heard. Have you seen the movie Brave?
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, this is what she follows to like go to the witch's house. It's like the little blue like
yeah
things. Yeah, so that's how I knew them.
That's what they are? Okay.
Yeah, the willow wisps. They're kind of cool. However, some legends say that these types of fae only appear as lights, while other stories say that the lights are from the lanterns that these fairies carry. So it's debated like if the lights themselves are the wisps,
Or if they
or if they're
carry
like,
them.
yeah, which is to me is kind of a creepier thought to if these are the lanterns of all like the bigger things carrying the lanterns.
Yeah, that's creepier to me too.
Yeah. Anyways,
Mm.
so the Willow Wisp is unpredictable and can lead people astray. So they are also kind of on the darker side of things too. So according to other stories, they can also lead travelers to fortune or to their fate, which is what happened in Brave.
Mm-hmm.
And the Will-O-Wisp is primarily a trickster that delights in leading travelers at night into dangerous ground, such as bogs or marshes.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, so not the
Nice.
best. Yeah. So again, the
Most
trickster
of my
part.
experience with Fae is the overarching theme is that Fae are tricksters and they
Yes.
cause problems.
Yes, which is not something like when you grow up. Like I didn't think of that at all with Tinkerbell and her friends. But then after hearing like actual stories of Fae folk, they're all very tricky and not nice. Not the nicest.
Not nice.
Yeah. So next we have is a Dryad. So Dryads are types of fairies that are tied to trees. So while they aren't the actual spirit of the tree, they are a type of fae. And then if the tree dies, sadly the Dryad will die too. So they're not like the spirit of the actual tree, but they'll protect them and they're connected with the specific tree.
They're connected with like
So
the energy or like the health of the tree.
yeah, yep.
Okay.
So the Dryads don't typically travel far from their trees because they're very attached to one specific area and will do everything in their power to keep the tree alive.
That's nice.
Yeah,
The ride or
it is.
die.
There you go. So these types of fae will look more favorably upon humans if they care for their trees. They can be a bit shy, but when they see a human taking care of the environment and treating animals and nature well, they'll more likely open up and communicate, which is cool. It's kind of just like a gentle spirit, which I think is really cool. So you'll be able to tell if you have a Dryad in your yard if any of your trees have a quote-unquote face look to them. And then alternatively, if you'll feel an active or different energy around the tree that indicates that the tree spirit has a Dryad attached.
So is Old Mother Willow in Pocahontas, is she a Dryad?
Probably, yeah.
I think that's, yeah,
That makes
technically,
sense.
I think so.
Because you were like, it has to have a face look on, and she literally
Kind
has
of.
a
It can be.
face.
It's
Heard a lot
literally a
of
face.
stories and legends, and I think they inspire a lot of ballads and too of where there's young men that fall in love with the Dryads
With a
Oh.
tree?
because
Well, it's a
sometimes
spirit.
they look human, and
Yeah.
in a lot of these
Mhm.
stories they come across as human, but they can't go far from their tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there were some of those like Dryad things in like the Chronicles of Narnia books.
Was there?
I think I remember because there's like 7 books. I think there was some like tree spirits in one of the 7 books.
Okay, yeah, I believe that, yeah. Alright, so next one we have, again, is on the darker side, are the Kelpies. So the Kelpies are scary water fairies
No,
that are...
I don't mess with water.
Yeah, that's a new one. I thought you just didn't like birds, but
I mean, I
water
don't
too.
like birds, but I mean, like, water's creepy.
Yeah. Like, the older I get, the more I get
Drowning
kind
is
of...
terrifying to me.
Yeah, yep, not a good way to go.
Nope.
So Kelpies are scary water fairies that are thought to be cannibalistic and carnivorous.
Even worse. Great. Yep.
Yes, yep. So, according to Scottish and Irish legends, Kelpies eat deer off the shoreline, as well as other types of fairies and even humans.
Like a shark.
Yes, yep, literally. Well, do sharks can't grab deer off the shore, right?
No, but I don't. Yeah.
But they'll eat, yeah. They'll eat when they're hungry, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, male Kelpies are thought to be shapeshifters, and they can turn into handsome men to lure young women into the water and either trap them or consume them.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yep. And then typically the Kelpie is seen in a form of a horse, which often with like a tail attached. And you can find Kelpies in the ocean as well as in rivers and streams. So it's not like you're safe really anywhere except
A
by like lakes and
stream?
ponds and streams, yes.
I always assume like a stream isn't very deep water.
Sometimes
I
I
guess that's
think that Kelpies are like water spirits, so they can take the form in the water. So
Yeah,
as
like they
long as
can
there's
shape
water
shift.
present.
Oh.
Which is even more terrifying.
This is a scary thing.
Yeah. And then some say that the Loch Ness Monster is often thought to be a form of a Kelpie.
Oh, interesting.
Weird.
Because it is from like Irish and Scottish legends, so like
That's
tying that into
true.
Nessie.
Scottish.
So
Yeah, Nessie's Scottish. What the
I never
heck?
thought of it that way.
it's like, yeah. If that's true, I don't want to go near Loch Ness anytime soon.
Well, if that's true, maybe the Loch Ness really is still there.
That's true.
Mhm.
Okay, so the last kind that I have is a salamander.
I'm pretty sure I learned about salamanders in science class.
I'm pretty
I
sure that
can't
we
real.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure we did.
Yes, but this is a Fey folk salamander.
I think we dissected one, maybe, in like biology. Or was that a frog?
Probably.
I don't know.
Yeah, some people do
Frogs are
frogs.
common.
Some people do pigs.
Some people did
Yeah.
cats.
I know, my mother did
There
a
was.
cat.
I remember this, and I'll never forget this memory as long as I ever live.
Uh-oh.
The human I was in maybe 7th grade or 8th grade science class. The human anatomy class, so that'd be like 11th or 12th grade, were dissecting cats. And they had the bodies on the table and they were covered in shrouds. And the teacher told us, like, don't look under there. So, what is a person gonna do?
there?
You go over there, lifted it up. The cat's like eyes all weird, like cross-eyed, and then it's in like a weird pose with its mouth open, like frozen in time.
That's really sad.
Gross.
It was creepy.
I think the first thing we had to dissect for that class was like a clam.
A clam?
We did a clam, and then we did like a starfish.
How did I dissect a clam? It's just like a hawk of
Yeah.
Like different parts of like I don't remember what all was in it, but it's like the different organs and stuff. Oh, we did an earthworm first. That was the first thing we did.
Yeah. I don't know how you dissect an earthworm. They're so teeny tiny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, going back to salamanders. So salamanders aren't very well known type of fae, which I had never heard of them. But however, they're considered to be one of the most powerful. So generally, salamanders are known as a fire elemental and can be really helpful if you're a witch working with fire. They appear as fiery lizards in orange and red tones, although they're also known to show up as a classic fire fairy or even a ball of fire for light. So, like all types of fairies, salamanders can be mischievous, so you do need to make sure that you know what you're doing before you ask them to work with you. So they can get quite upset if they feel like they've been even slightly neglected, and they will wreak havoc. Yeah.
Oh, great. So it's still like a little salamander?
Like they said, like the salamanders can come in either as like a salamander or it's like a ball of fire or like as a, like a kind of like a fairy looking thing. So it can come in different forms. So in legend, salamanders are credited with having taught the first humans how to make fire.
Oh.
There are versions of Salamanders' origins stating that they were created in the furnaces of glass blowers who kept their furnaces stoked for several days and nights, and then they're often described as small lizards.
Why lizards?
Yeah, that's what
If
I
they
want to
can
know.
show as balls of fire.
Or a human form.
Why lizards?
I have a potential origin for you guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the most likely basis for this myth or this fae folk is found in like actual real life salamanders. Where they're known to hibernate through the winter in logs, which were then picked up and used to fuel fires. So, like, these poor little salamanders will be in these logs.
Roasted?
So, not roasted, actually. So, as a result of being tossed into the fire, they would wake up and scamper out of the fire. So, and because their skin is, like, cool and damp, they would be able to survive and escape from the flames. And, like, because people didn't know, like, what was happening, they just see these little reptiles crawling out of the fire, they thought that they were fire spirits. And then thus so now that they are the elemental of fire.
That's kind of awesome. I also thought it gave me like a weird visual when you said that the salamanders may have been credited with teaching humans how to make fire. So I like imagine like a little salamander sitting there like showing these human like the cave people how to like move like the stick fast enough to get like a
That's so cute. I love that idea. I want to make it a little cartoon. That'd be cute. Kathew, you should animate it for us. That'd be cute. Isn't it? I don't know. Like I recently watched Frozen 2, and I think because I know like their fire elemental in that movie is like a little reptile. I don't know if it's a salamander, but it looks like one. So that's interesting if they took.
It probably would be,
That's
right?
what I'm kind of thinking.
It'd be a fairy.
Yeah, which is cool. Disney uses a lot of this lore in their movies.
They do a lot of research,
which is good. I appreciate it.
I mean, for like Moana, they did so much research with what kind of plants.
Oh yeah,
that the Polynesian people would use to weave these baskets.
That's cool.
And I know in Frozen 2 that they have some Sami references. So they sent some of their animators to Finland to like the upper Lapland area where the Sami live, and they had them teach them. I don't know what, but
yeah, probably just like their culture a little
then
bit.
Wouldn't that mean that horse she rides on is a Kelpie?
That's what I was just wondering too. Because it's like it's
Does it
water.
eat?
It's
Yeah.
the water elemental.
The
Yeah.
water horse thing.
That's creepy.
Yeah, just a cannibalistic horse. So the next one I have are Pixies.
Good band.
I've never heard of that band.
Great band.
Aren't they
I'll
usually
look 'em up.
naked?
The band? No.
Pixies, the lore, the creature.
I don't know. I
Don't they
know the
look
band.
like little branches that are kind of like gremlin-like?
Ranches?
Yeah, they like blend in with the branches.
Hidden
I thought you
Valley?
said ranch, like RANCH.
Oh no, branches. I thought they were
Okay.
like spindly and kind of look bug-like, and they.
Are they bug-eyed?
Yeah, I guess I didn't see bug-eyed. But yeah, they are usually naked. Yes.
I'm looking up.
Just look.
Oh, you went to everyone went to like pause this episode. They're like naked pixies.
Oh. Kathew's Google searches are going to be odd.
Google searches are always odd.
So pixies are most likely what you picture when you hear fairies. So they are only about 4 inches tall and tend to live in gardens in the woods. So they're the types of fae that have the most contact with humans, and they tend to show up a lot in I can't really hear you.
They're ugly little fucks.
They're gonna come and haunt you. They're gonna come and like live in your plants that are dying.
They're gonna come and the Kim Kardashian pictures are gonna come and twerk on your face.
How can I show this picture to you? Here,
I don't know.
Well, you can send it, just like upload it onto the Google Slides at the end, and then Katrina will put this up on the Instagram page at Foolish Wanderers on Instagram.
It just like popped up on our slides and it made me laugh.
Oh, that's ugly.
It is really ugly. Yeah, they're not like the Disney version. Like the actual like
not by miles.
So pixies are well known in southwestern England's folklore, but they can live in basically any wooded area or garden. Pixies typically have colored skin and hair, and they also have butterfly wings, and they are known to be like more earth and nature fairies or fae folk. So pixies are known to move extremely fast, kind of like a hummingbird. So some pixies only dress in green, while others prefer colors more of nature, kind of like blue or yellow. So it's usually nature-based colors. So even though pixies tend to enjoy contact with humans, they're very cunning and will delight in leading humans astray. So again, tricksters. So they are very mischievous, and they're also very ferocious fighters. And it's actually said that they'll fight fairies, like actual fairies, even though they're smaller than them. So that's interesting. And they said that they'll fight anything or anyone to defend what they love. So they're very feisty little things.
Scrappy. I like
Scrappy Doo.
Oh, don't bring that. Oh, he's the worst character ever.
I agree. So pixies don't understand human desperation or pain, and they play a lot of jokes in their case to be fun, but these jokes actually for humans are not funny or fun, and actually can cause a lot of harm. They're especially known to steal stuff from your home or take items and hide them somewhere else so you can't find them. And then I've also read accounts that like sometimes they'll like steal your horses to ride them. They'll just like break in, steal a horse, ride them away.
That thing doesn't look like it can ride a horse.
I'm just saying.
Wait, what's the positive of these pixie things? Because I'm not hearing anything.
Technically, I think mostly what they do is like they kind of take care of nature, kind of like look after it. But for humans, there's not a lot. So
I'm seeing like there's sociopaths that will steal your horse.
Yep.
Forget about them.
So the next one that I have, this is the last type of fae folk that we're going to be talking about today. They are actual fairies. So fairies are the most human-like, and they are about 6 inches tall with human faces, bodies, and hair. So while pixies are 4 inches, fairies themselves are 6 inches tall. Fairies have large dragonfly wings instead of butterfly wings like pixies, and their wings can vary in shape slightly depending on the source, like which legend they're from. However, they're always like the wings are always a lot larger than their bodies. Fairies also wear clothes, unlike pixies, more like humans. So fairies are also generally kind and timid compared to like pixies that are feisty. They'll fight anything. The fairies love celebrations and parties. They'll spend most of their time among the flowers and bugs and generally take care of the wildlife. Fairies possess magical powers, and they are also known to bestow wealth, intelligence, and kindness upon those that they love. So yeah, so they're good ones. So they also have powers to defy nature and can live underwater. They also love cheese and fruits.
Cheese and fruits. I like cheese and fruits too.
They love them. They love a nice charcuterie board.
Just put out a nice charcuterie board for them. And
ooh, delicious.
Something nice. With some brie, some kiwi, and some brie.
Ooh, that sounds good. Or
Lovely.
grapes. Like grapes. So now we're gonna get into some rules with dealing with a fae. So if you ever come across a fae, this is like some of the stuff. So like recently, surprisingly on TikTok, I've seen some people like TikTok's full of magical things. So it was like when I first started going on TikTok, I saw like videos of people finding like little bones or like little nuts or like little rocks outside their door or like their windows every once in a while. And like people would be like, don't touch it. It's from the fae. Don't touch it or else you'll be like,
oh, it's cursed?
Yeah, it's like cursed or like so we'll kind of get into like why you shouldn't take a gift from the fae. But yeah, so it's like I've seen a few videos of people like finding these little like mouse skulls and stuff outside their door, which is weird. Just like little things like that. It's just like it's weird and like very ominous. And like to me, like I first heard about it, I was like, that doesn't seem like a bad thing, right? Like they seem to like you, you know, they're giving you
a mouse
gifts.
skull doesn't seem like a gift to me.
Well, like if it's like little rocks and stuff, because like some of it was like rocks, some was like bones. It depends like which ones you saw. But like some of it seems innocent, or like if you don't know about it, it seems innocent. But then after you like hear about like, oh, the fae are trying to trick you, don't take it, then it gets really creepy. Bones are always creepy, finding them on your doorstep anyway.
Bones are always creepy.
Yeah.
Ominous.
Very ominous. Okay, so rule number 1. Never accept a gift from a fairy. It says that if you accept a gift from a fairy, willing or unwilling, so like if you see these rocks outside your doorstep or your windowsill and you bring them into your house, it's even if you don't know who it like that it was from a fairy, they still think you accepted it, and then they will expect something in return. And it's not always something that is simple or like that is good for a human. Like it could be, you know, something like food, or it can be something like your firstborn child.
Oh my gosh.
It's like very weird and depends on like the situation, but it's also like it's never on your terms, it's always on theirs.
So Rumpelstiltskin is a fairy.
Yes.
Oh,
in those terms, yeah. I don't know if he is or not.
Good job, Kathew. Yeah, he would be then.
In that sense, yeah. So it's like the other thing with the timeline is like it could be they expect it that day, or they could want it 10 years from now.
That's so scary.
It is really scary. So I've heard mixed messages too on like if you accept it, if you're not knowing, if you don't know if it's from a fae, like if you're if you have never heard of them or whatever. I've heard like this where it says like they'll still want something in return. Otherwise, I've also heard like if you don't know about it, then they won't bother you. So it's kind of mixed that way too.
Mixed messages, okay.
Yeah. However, the same goes with saying thank you. You should never say thank you to a fairy because it also implies that you owe them something. So instead of saying thank you, say something like, I really appreciate it. So it's like a workaround.
With the loophole.
Yep. So the second rule is do not eat or drink anything that they give you.
Duh.
So if you were to eat the food that a fairy had offered you, it would either make you like never want human food again, so then you'd like eventually die of starvation, or another side effect, it would be like you go mad, basically like you go insane. Otherwise, like if you are currently, when you eat the food, if you're in the land of the fairies, then you get trapped in it and become become like their prisoner. Yeah, not fun.
All solid choices. Yeah, all good.
all fun. All right, so the next one is never enter a fairy ring.
What does that mean? Like a fight ring?
Like mushroom rings. Some people say that if you see a ring of mushrooms in a forest or a meadow or something, that's a fairy ring.
I've actually had a few in my yard. They're not there anymore, but
is it a perfect circle?
Pretty dang close.
Yeah.
Okay,
but I mean, terrifying. Spores kind of do that.
Yeah, that's like that's like the whole mushroom.
It's a natural thing for mushrooms to do.
Yeah. So if you're, for example, if you're on an evening stroll and you hear lovely jolly music, don't follow it.
I would never, in any circumstances.
Exactly. Yeah. If you do follow the music, however, if you make that choice, do not enter the fairy circle. It is said that the music is to be irresistible, so that you'll want to come and join in the dancing, and they're going to be dancing in the fairy ring. Don't join them. It's said that fairy time works very differently than human time. So, for example, an hour of human time can equal centuries in fairy time. So if you're in the circle,
it was reversed, and that's why you could get stuck there. And then when you get back, all your family's dead.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, so like an hour in the human world, you go into the fairy time, their time.
So you could spend an hour in their fairy world, but when you come back, it's been an entire century.
Yeah. Sorry, I wrote that weird. Yeah. But
yeah.
So
okay, I was just.
Yeah. So like in our worlds, if you go into it, it's being like for your time reference, it'd be an hour, but you get out of it, it can be centuries. Yeah,
that's
in the real world, it's weird and it's creepy. I don't like it. So another one that I've heard is that there's some very gruesome tales where a human cannot stop dancing in the fairy circle, and they can't keep up with the fairies, so they dance until their feet become bloody stumps.
Lovely imaging.
It's great.
Sounds
I
like a
painted a lovely
fantastic
picture.
party.
Yep. All right. So the last rule that I have for you guys is don't ever tell a fairy your full name.
What?
So, if you're to meet a fairy and they ask you for your name, never give them your full name. It's said that if you give them your full name, they'll have a certain amount of control over you, like mind control.
They have mind control now?
Something, yeah, like they'll have some power over you, so they can control you a little bit. So apparently, according to legend, that's why we have middle names, because that's the one we keep secret, so they don't ever fully know the full name. And then it's also said that like that's a way that they cannot steal a child if they don't know their full name.
A lot of cultures put importance on the full name or your true name, or things like that. I've heard in a lot of stories.
Yeah. Yep. So said that the best thing to do in this situation then is to either make up a name, like a nickname, like give them a fake name, or just give them a nickname of yours. Like just tell them like a shortened version of your first name. Yeah. And apparently too, another little loophole is if you know their name, if you say their name, they'll leave you alone. Which I don't know how you'll get their name, but
find out their name instead.
Again, like Rumpelstiltskin, right? Like that's how that got
Yeah.
avoided. So
He is a fairy.
He is a
yeah,
fairy.
something like that. Yeah, yeah.
A lot of these like fairy rules are just like normal rules that you would do for like a stranger.
Stranger danger.
Yeah,
Exactly.
stranger danger.
Where they are strangers. So
that's true too.
Yeah. So some sources that I have for this podcast are teaandrosemary.com, mythosfandom.com, thefairypage.blogspot.com, medium.com, theforgottenlibrary.tumblr.com, and willowsnug.com. It's just a lot of different theories. Like it does depend to like which region you're talking about, like where you get your lore from, because it does kind of vary a little bit, like what they look like, what they can do, that stuff. But all generally speaking, it is pretty close to the same.
Cool.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Did you learn something kind of, Kathew? Or did you know most of it?
I kind of knew this.
I didn't know anything.
I told you, I've been reading fantasy since I was in like 4th grade.
Yeah.
I honestly thought pixies and fairies were the same thing, but they are drastically different.
Yeah. Not so fun. Not the pretty Disney versions anymore.
Not by miles. That horse in the Frozen 2 was not cannibalistic.
No, it was actually very pretty. I like it.
It was very elegant.
Yep. So since we have a little bit more time, I have, which fun fact would you like? 1, 2, or 3? And I'll read it.
Kathew was a special guest. So.
Yes, pick one, Kathew, please.
2.
She got super close to the mic for that one.
Kissed it.
Okay, here we go. The delegates who attended the Constitutional Convention spent much of their time getting drunk. One surviving document is a bill for a party on September 15th, 1787, 2 days before the signing of the Constitution. Items on the bill were 54 bottles of Madeira, 60 bottles of claret, 8 bottles of whiskey, 8 bottles of cider, 12 bottles of beer, and 7 bowls of alcoholic punch. All this for 55 people.
This is the way. This is the American way.
Sloshed. It is the
The American way is binge drinking, Jesus, and guns.
Yes,
and
all
apple pie.
One.
And apple pie.
Thank you for joining us, Kathew. That was fun.
I was fun. I like this.
Even though you knew everything.
I like
you knew everything already.
I like the Fae folk. I got this huge, thick book of lore and
cool.
That's cool.
I was obsessed as a young child.
The Fae folk.
It's a young child. Are you a changeling? Were you exchanged?
Are you
just learning about your people?
That probably is a lot of things wrong with me.
Thank you guys so much for listening and for sticking around for 50 episodes. Hope that you still continue to join us here for another 150 more. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you guys next time. Is there a dog version of catnip?
I don't think so.
I know, but in Target they were selling a cat Chardonnay.
Yeah, I've seen that. Cat wine. They
Cat
have like
wine.
3 different flavors.
Yeah, this tiny little bottle of cat wine. A red and a white.
I think
Is
there's
it
rosé
grape?
too.
It's like a combination of like fish oils and catnip oil and
That's so wild. I like that.
Oh, there's
Cat
4
wine.
different kinds. So there's Cat Brunet, Mas Catao, Pinot Meow,
Pinot Meow.
Prosecco.
Prosecco.
There's a bloody meowie now.
Oh no.
That's gross.
Bloody
So
meowie.
people can get drunk with their cats, I guess.
What a great way to bond.
I know. Get drunk with your cat.
Getting sloshed with your cat. Once my dog drank out of my dad's beer like outside on the dock. Like my parents were sitting on the dock.
Yeah.
And the dog, my old dog, got in there, drank some beer, and then she proceeded to fall off of the dock into the water twice. Twice that evening. Twice.
How much
And
beer did she drink?
she kept going back. She would sneak and then like lick, 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 lick.
Stinker. Oh man.
But twice she fell off of the dock. Twice. And then my dad had to try and like, jump in there and get her out. Scoop her.
Because was she swimming, like doggy paddling, or was she just sitting there?
Like in the water?
Yeah.
No, like it's instinct for them to like do their like sad, depressing doggy paddle where they go,
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought, but I was like,
she was drunk. Like, she wasn't the smartest bulb in the batch because she would swim in circles.
Oh my goodness.
So